Hey guys, it's Tony and we're back on the bench. And this evening we're going to be getting into doing a little reassembly service here on a classic little pen reel. So this is the Penn 420 skirted spool, second generation of the Spinfisher, somewhat of an ultralight spinning reel here. Okay, so this is the high speed 5.1 to 1 gear ratio version of this. And, as you can see, we've got it all taken apart. We've been doing some cleaning. It had a lot of old grease buildup just internally and whatnot. So we want to get back into it here now and, get this reel ready to go on out and hopefully do some fishing before long here. Okay, so we're going to start with some of these pieces here. So we've got this nice helical, pinion gear assembly here. And, we've taken some penetrating oil and cleaned out all these teeth really well. Okay, we're going to go back in with some fresh pen grease appropriate for this reel. And we're going to get that going on there, like so. Okay. And then we've also got a bearing here. This is a sealed bearing. We've cleaned it up the best we can. There's really not much more that we can do with it. Okay, but we're going to slide this back into position like so. Okay. We'll take some real oil to the top of that bearing for what it's worth, and it'll work its way in there somewhat. Bearing's in pretty good shape. No need to replace it or anything like that right now. So I also like to have a little bit of that oil, on the outer edge of this bearing just to prevent any rust damage, essentially. Okay, and that should set down in there like so. Give a little tap. Okay, now this was held in by a broken snap ring, actually. You can see here, it looks like someone's been here before and they broke this. I was able to kind of pry it out with a screwdriver just because I wanted to get this assembly out. Okay, but just make note that it should probably have a snap ring that actually has the holes where, you use the tool typically for those things. Okay, we're going to see if we can snap this back in. Doesn't really affect the operation, thank goodness. So, okay. So that's spinning nice and freely. Okay, so we got that taken care of. Now, for some of our other parts here. Okay, so we've got a friction clutch driven system here that's attached to this main gear. Okay, now you want to make note when you're dealing with friction clutch systems, okay, because again, they're meant to, they operate on friction. Okay, so you don't want to get oils and things like that on here, okay, because it can make it slip. I've seen that happen before. Okay, so when you're talking about applying, penetrating oils and stuff to a piece like this to clean out the main gear teeth and whatnot, clean it up really well, and then you can go back over it with some parts cleaner, some choke carb cleaner, some brake clean, okay, and get all that residual stuff off of there. Make sure that it's really, really clean, right, when you go to put that back on, okay. And then this is the clutch here. Right, and this is meant to be attached essentially to this disc here. I'm going to try to do the best I can with this on camera. Okay, but it should look something like that. All right, when you go to put it back in. Okay, now that hole here has to line up with that stud right there. Okay, now before we get too far along, there's a few things we need to do. We've got this shaft here. We want to take a little bit of blue grease to this shaft. Not a whole bunch. Don't get it down here, all right? And then you also want to get some on the gear teeth here, but you do not want to get it on that friction clutch, okay? So my recommendation is just get a little bit of it there on some of the teeth, okay? You don't have to hit every tooth, okay? Because remember, it's going to pick up grease from the helical pinion gear as well, okay? But just get it started. It'll work its way in eventually, okay? And sometimes this can be a little tricky to do, so just take your time. Okay. It should look something like that. All right, then that way that lever will move back and forth. And again, because it's friction driven, okay, it rotates back into place. Okay, we're going to take a little bead of oil down here. Okay, so now we've got a cam. We've cleaned this up with some 4O steel wool. It was a little on the rough edge here, so we wanted to make sure it's cleaned up nice and smooth. Okay, as well as, some of these other screws and whatnot, just, cleaning off any residual, stuff that's on there. Now we can put our rotor back into position here at this point. We've got this nut here. It's a 3/8 nut. Put that back on with a nut driver. You don't want to over tighten that. Okay. And now we've also cleaned up our main drive shaft here with some 4O steel wool. We're going to take that blue grease to the shaft here. Also make note you've got this Teflon washer attached. You don't want to lose that. All right, and then we've got our cam. And then we've got this screw and washer assembly here. And the way this is supposed to work, first and foremost, we're just going to take a little bit of grease to the surface of that. Line it up with the hole. Okay. Little bead of oil right there. Let that work its way in on the threads. Okay. And then we line up our cam. Once we get a little blue grease on here as well, it's going to help prevent any rust or corrosion damage there. Line it up like so. Take your screw and put that in place. That way it's not going to go anywhere. And you have to get this lined up just right in order for it to go all the way down. Let's spin that up a little bit. We're going to go back with a little more blue grease on top of this here, just for good measure. Okay. Now we're going to slide down that main gear or main shaft. And I find that sometimes you need a little help kind of prying this up a little bit to get it to line up just right. Get your holes lined up here at the base. A little bead of oil there. And then you've got this screw down here. Sometimes these are a little hard to start, I find, so you just kind of have to move it around a little bit back and forth. Okay, so we're going to finish spinning this up like that. Okay, everything looks really good here. Side plate goes back on. And we're going to spin up this side plate screw. Don't want to over tighten it. It is just a plastic plate on the outside here. Okay, and then we've got our spool nice and clean. We're going to slap that back into position like that. Okay, and then we've got our drag stack. All right, nice big Teflon washer, nice big metal washer. And then we got the tension washer. It goes on top there. I'll spin that up. I do want to make sure that we do a little bit of real oil, just a little bead of it here and here on those bail seams, just to keep that bail assembly intact. And then we've got a little bit of like rusted tarnish here, nothing unusual for these reels. I'm going to see if we can take a little bit of that off. A little bit of WD-40 here and some 4.0 steel wool. Some of that is probably permanently on there, but actually it's coming off now. It's loosening up a little bit. Not too bad. Okay. Also find that sometimes you get a lot of dirt and debris caught up down here in this screw. And I can see that there's a little bit of sign of rust damage here, so you want to loosen that up. And it doesn't hurt to hit that with a little bit of penetrating oil. Let that work its way in there a little bit. And break up that rust. You can see it there. I cleaned it up pretty good, actually. And that's also going to clean up these threads as well. Okay. And then we've got this spacer that goes back on here like so. Just going to do a tiny little bead of oil there. Okay. Dry the hands off here. Actually, just take the glove off completely. And we're going to get another paper towel. I'm not a big fan of leaving WD-40 and penetrating oils, especially on small reels like this, at least when I intend to go use them. Because I find that those petroleum products and stuff like that kind of lessen the bite typically. At least that's been my experience. I've heard other people that have had great success with that. But I do, however, when it comes to storage, like, just, spraying a little WD-40 on a towel like this and wrapping the reel that way for storage. If you don't intend to use the reel for a while, it's a good tactic. All right, so we're going to try this out. Nice and smooth, as it should be. Okay. Make sure the bail's firing good. It is. And we're going to tighten up the drag. Nice smooth drag on here. Yep. And back it off when you're not using it. So there you have it. That is the Penn 420SS high-speed ball bearing ultralight spinning reel, all serviced up and ready to go. And thanks again for watching. This is Tony with Back on the Bench. If you liked the video, please do give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more, please make sure you do subscribe and hit the notification button. That way it'll give you all the updates as to when there are new videos being posted, and I do intend to have quite a few more coming out shortly, so make sure you stay tuned for those, and we'll see you next time.